fine.
I can't see. All right. I'm going to stand for Captain to take his seat.
He's actually.
They're looking for you.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
All right. Phones off if you got them.
Yes, please.
All quiet.
Okay. So thank you all for coming here today. This is obviously the UCWT AFSC information panel. Thanks for taking the time to come out. It's the first one that we're holding this year. I'm second Lieutenant Santelli.
And yeah, so we're gonna basically, it's gonna be an informal type of event. I know they're all up here, but it's just for the purpose of YouTube and Zoom. But feel free to ask whatever questions you guys have on like the 4 shred outs. And I'm gonna have the instructors introduce themselves, just a little bit of background and what AFSC you could speak to. So we'll start with Captain Florence.
Hey everybody, my name is Anthony Florence. I just came from the 33rd Network Warfare Squadron, and before that, I was at the 834th. I made 17S Bravo, and before that, I commissioned through Officer Training School in 2017. Before that, I was a contractor for some Fortune 500 companies. I got my graduate's degree there, and I got my bachelor's in information technology.
My name is Steve Comer. I'm a Sierra Alpha, and I so far have worked at the 352nd Cyber Ops Squadron in Hawaii, where I was an OCO operator, and I went through the riot pipeline when I was there. And then after that, I was at the Computer Network Operations Development Program at the 7th Intelligence Squadron in Fort Meade. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Captain Daniel McAdams. I am a 17 Delta Bravo. I came here from being a contingency planner in Korea on the 7th Air Force staff. And before that, I was in the 606th Air Control Squadron in their network operations flight. So that's most of my expeditionary comm experience. Before that, I was actually a comm squadron flight commander in Korea. So I've done the Alpha Life as well. So any questions about the combat comm life, or more specifically expeditionary comm, since I wasn't actually in the bid for the first, then I could speak to those.
Hey everyone, I'm Jay Kimball. I'm recently redesignated Sierra Bravo as of like 2019. I guess that's recent, two years ago. My last assignment was at the 363rd Intelligence Support Squadron, doing intel support as a 17 Delta predominantly. I spent 6 to 8 months at Kessel Run doing some software development stuff. Before that, I was a prior enlisted 3DOX2. Did that for 11 years. I had 9 years overseas at, Japan, England, spent some time in Germany, TDY degrees, Korea, and then stateside at the National Reconnaissance Office before commissioning. So I've got about 16 years. And if you guys have questions either about 17 Delta or Sierra Bravo.
Hey, you guys, I'm Tony Doan. I'm a 17 Delta Alpha. Before this assignment, I just recently got here. I was at the 325th Communications Squadron at Tyndall Air Force Base, where I got the chance to rebuild Tyndall from the ground up and work with a lot of combat comm to establish our network. And we also worked with a lot of E&I squadrons, and also we had a mission defense team, so I'm also familiar with that. I also attended their FMAC course for that, just to get eyes on it. I'm a criminology law enforcement major. Before my time at Tyndall, I was a student here. I graduated in 2018. So if you guys have any questions about that, let me know.
We have 2-1 Bravos back here. I'm Sergeant Caton, previously at the 92nd COS. That's pretty much my only assignment for here for cyber. Was F-15 avionics, aircraft maintenance. So if you have any questions for 1 Bravos, I'm here for that.
Sergeant Bloodworth, 1 Bravo 4 as well. Spent 3 years in the OCO world, did 305 cost. I was a fires planner there for one of CMTs. And before that, I was at the 52nd Combat Communications Squadron in Warner Robins, Georgia. So I've done OCO stuff and combat comm, expeditionary squadron stuff. So if you guys have any questions about that, obviously, got plenty of experience here. So.
Yeah, so, does anyone, can we do the Sierra Alpha related questions first? Is that all right?
Absolutely, that's asked. That's it. Dr. Larson,
Okay.
what's the outlook for going to CMDP out of UCT?
No.
It's very encouraging. Thank you, sir.
Please sit back down. Thank you.
Really, there's a couple reasons for that. One is that both the Air Force and the National Security Agency, who actually owns that program, they want people, especially on the military side, to come in with operational experience prior to starting CODP. Because one of the biggest things that you do in CODP is you rotate around different work centers, and they want you to both understand the capability development needs of the military and cyber command, and also have operational experience so that you bring something to the table whenever you rotate through all those intelligence community offices. So there's a couple different reasons for it. Additionally, that's viewed as like a professional development opportunity, and so they don't want to send you straight from training into that. I will tell you, it's a competitive program. You will be more competitive applying for it if you already have operational experience when you're trying to do it.
As a follow-up question, is it recommended to have Forge right prior to applying for that PT?
Certainly not going to hurt you. In fact, it's a positive discriminator because you already have experience working in the intelligence community and their operational environment. But it's certainly not necessary. You also don't need to be a Sierra. You don't need to be a 17. We have a bomber pilot who's in my class, so it doesn't matter. CODP brings people on board purely based on their technical skills, specifically focused on software development. Does that work?
Yes, sir.
Any other Sierra Alpha questions?
Sir, Ravenard Crusoe, directly out of training, what does a day in the life of Sierra Alpha look like? Because I've kind of heard you don't have any airmen underneath you right away. You're going straight into actual operational work.
Yeah, so I just did 7 years in, and I've never been a flight commander, which is very strange, I imagine, relative to my peers up here. The leadership opportunities that you'll have as a Sierra Alpha are different. They're not present, they're still there. A lot of it's going to be informal whenever you're a lieutenant and maybe a junior captain, but you'll quickly start to get into some operational leadership positions and opportunities. You might end up as a crew commander or a mission commander, which are very ops focused. So you're not going to be doing much of the administrative side of the Air Force management, but you will be able to lead missions and lead airmen operationally, and possibly also joint teams too. There's a lot of opportunity there, but it is different. So what your day will be spent doing instead of leading airmen in that normal sense that many officers will do is you'll instead be really sharpening yourself technically as much as you possibly can. That'll be done through you actually conducting operations. You may end up doing planning for operations. You may do other functions related with what it takes to actually get mission accomplished. However, as a Sierra Alpha, a good part of your first year or two is going to be spent in training. So at a minimum, after your time here at UCWT, if you're a Sierra Alpha, you will go to the 39th Information Operations Squadron, Det 1, which is in San Antonio, and you'll go through what's called the Air Force Basic Operator Course, which is about 3 months long. And after you're done with that course, then you'll get vectored to some other part of the enterprise where you'll go to do some operational.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
That helps. And just quickly on my side for what I did as an operator, a week in the life of an operator was conducting a couple operations during that week. So generally speaking, that might be something like if I was going to do an operation on a Tuesday and a Thursday, I would probably spend Monday and Wednesday preparing from and then learning from the operations. That helps?
Yes, sir. Makes sense. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other Sierra Alpha questions?
So I have a follow-up question. I was looking at the standard requirements today. One of the requirements was the operational experience. Like I mentioned. One of them was research and development. I know some of the folks that are coming from the AFIT interpret that as like the AFIT experience as a way to fulfill that requirement. What is your perspective on an AFIT, getting a master to the AFIT, satisfying the operational for this experience requirement?
So can you specify what specific requirement you're talking about? It's in the
I
call for
looked at it
applicants.
like this morning, so I can't like.
Is this in the call for applicants?
Yes, sir.
My guess is that there wouldn't be necessarily a requirement to have spent time operationally doing R&D, at AFRL or in academia at AFIT, something like that. However, graduate education certainly isn't going to hurt you. By no means do you need to have a master's degree or anything like that. It just seems to be that crazy, but it is a way that you can demonstrate that you have a passion for this stuff and that you pursue it beyond what's the minimum required. So that part is heavily desired. The showing initiative outside of your normal duties to show that you're trying to improve yourself, with the rate of change of our community and our domain, it's necessary to demonstrate the ability and desire to learn and keep learning. So whether you do that through grad school, through hobby projects you do on your own, or any other way that you might find to get that experience, that is positive.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sierra Alpha?
Yes, sir. So for those of us who might not have, the IT background, coming straight out of school or something like that, and pursuing the Sierra path, I've heard that there's a way that we can look back at it, they revisit later on. If you took the cart, maybe it didn't do as well. Can you talk a little bit about that path?
Are you referring to redesignation?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what the schedule is for those redesignation boards. I believe they're going to be happening every year or two.
Yeah, they're annually right now.
Yeah. So it may be as often as every year. Really though, this is not official policy. This is Steve's interpretation. But my guess is that they seem to be looking for people to have gained experiences in the shred that they want to go into prior to switching to that shred. So my recommendation to you would be, if you get a shred that is not the shred that you wanted coming out of here, try to start behaving as if you're in the shred that you want to be. So for example, let's say that you get Sierra Bravo and you want Sierra Alpha. Start doing things like capture the flag exercises or open bug bounty competitions or other things like that. There are a lot of opportunities commercially and also free open competitions types of things that can help you to demonstrate. Again, that's really relates back to the CNODP. What they're looking for too is the desire to improve yourself outside of your required duties. And you would just, if you're trying to target a specific shred, you would want to focus those outside of work passion activities on things that are really focused on that big shred each one. That's my recommendation. Yes, sir.
You're going to look like, depending on what your records look like, your undergrad or graduate degree, if you're not a non-IT or cybersecurity related degree, you're a piece of paper or a couple pieces of paper to the folks that are on the designation board or redesignation board. So there's generally a series of questions that they're going to ask you. What are we missing from your military background, from your military records that aren't annotated here? What certifications do you have? What experience? Going back to like bug bounties or CTFs, like, hey, I've participated in this. I do this on my free time. You could show them your Git repo or whatever. Like, here's some of the projects I'm doing on my own time that show that I have competency in Sierra Alpha or Sierra Bravo or whatever you're trying to go get designated in, so they can feel confident that, and oftentimes I think they're going to have a call or an interview with the individual if they're wishy-washy. If it isn't a clear, like, okay, yeah, we missed this person on accident. People make mistakes. We overlooked them. We're going to go back and we're going to have a discussion with them. It's kind of a technical interview. Do as much as you can outside of your day. If you get designated a Delta Alpha and you want to be a Sierra Alpha, you've got to put it in the time outside of your normal duty hours. If you're really passionate about it, to get after it. And if it's not, the first year, it's the next year. If you guys go take a look at the 17X officer assignment team mill suite page or their Facebook page, they're actually going through a redesignation board like right now. Go read up on it, get educated on it. So when you do drop your shred here, if it's not what you expect, you're already ahead of the game, right? You're working on it, while you're here at UCWT. You're going to be busy here, but if you want it, spend those extra couple hours that you may have to focus on some of those other skills that you lack.
I have endless questions for Sierra Alpha. So the application process for the 39, there's a bunch of fields in there for about yourself, all that kind of stuff. Do you have any recommendations for what you want to put in there to vector towards forward and the ops?
So
And away from Sierra Bravo potentially?
it's really, so we did think about what the difference is between those shreds, right? So the Sierra Alphas, they break into networks, and the Sierra Bravos defend networks. So as much as you're able to tailor and describe your experiences in light of things that are involving hacking and breaking into networks, that's kind of where you want. Does that help at all? I mean,
Yes, sir. And then there's one more at the very end where it asks for what squadron or unit you have to go to. Give any ideas for what you want to put there? You want to do that blank? You don't really know a lot of different places. Right? So,
yeah, so let's see. Prior to the new structure of the course, in the current structure, you will get to go through the OCO block prior to actually completing that paperwork. And if you get that opportunity, that's a great time to be asking questions about that. We'll have to figure out for those who are starting class on or after July 7th, how we get that information to you ahead of time. Overall, though, I'd focus more, though, unless you have a very, very specific reason that you want to go to a very, very specific mission, I'd focus more on the work role that you want to do, which would be something like an operator or a planner or a science analyst. Yeah, make sense?
Yes, sir.
And so sorry, I didn't catch your name over there before.
Oh, Ray Bernard Crusoe.
Okay. So to your question earlier, another thing to keep in mind is that you're going to have some fantastic and very technical airmen working for you wherever you go. And let's say, for example, the idea that Captain Kimball mentioned, where you end up in a Delta Alpha unit, you're going to be more doing the managerial leadership side of things, but you're going to have some amazing 3 Deltas working for you in that case, who are going to be super uber technical, hands-on people. Don't forget to lean on their experience too and learn from them. And so that, yes, you need to show initiative and passion outside of your core duty hours. However, don't neglect that time. Don't forget about that time you have during duty day to dive into the technical weeds and the hands-on of what your airmen are doing. That's another way that you can get that more technical experience. And, maybe it's something like automating an office process that you or someone else in your unit does on a daily basis. You can save boatloads of time. I promise that there are a really huge number of opportunities where you can get some serious efficiency gains there by just bringing some basic scripting skills to your unit. There's a whole lot of places you can show that initiative. It doesn't just have to be in all of your free time. So, I'm good. Yes, sir. Any other Sierra Alpha specific questions? I have to get back to teaching, so I'm gonna step out. Thank you. And if you guys have any questions about Sierra Alpha or CODP or Riot, I would be more than happy to chat. So just get with your mentor and they can get my contact. So, thanks.
Please use proper change management procedures if you implement your homebrew scripts on the force networks, though.
By the way, Sergeant Marshall right here is one of our only fours, is also a Riot grad. So we need to answer some questions. Thanks.
Yep.
Any place the best students you guys promise? No.
Can we?
No room.
Can you explain a day in life?
That's gonna be my question. Can you explain the day in the life?
All right, so day in the life of an operator, that's Bravo. Well, after you complete all your qualification training and you're going on ops, you are talking about like what we did at the 33rd. We had different sections. We were part of different division of the DCO. For example, we had people doing alert system warnings. So we're watching the network for any malicious activity going on there. Then we had incident response, and they would sit back and get an alert to pop up. We would identify if that was a threat and categorize that, and then send it out to incident response. And that's where they performed that initial triage and see what kind of issue, what was the malicious activity that was going on, pull the data for there, see if it's malicious, and then further on, take that to the forensics guys to look into it. And then, yeah, it was pretty awesome. Probably the best experience. Comer brought up the fact that as a 17 SA, you have like a lot of experience like reading. The 17 Bravos, I felt like I got a really good understanding of the airmen being next to one Bravo and being in that section. I had to lead, sorry, I had to lead a 40 airmen at my section, and it's really awesome because I got to learn a lot more from the one Bravo guys. But yeah, it's pretty cool. There's an opportunity to go TDY a lot, so if you're into that, CPTs travel a lot, either in gray space or blue space, and you can have the opportunity to be a part of like the back chops. So if you're interested in like seeing how we put our sensors into places, you have an opportunity to do so, and lead teams, and time to program as well.
Can you talk about your training after UCWT, what that will look like?
Sure. It changed a little bit for us. I think when I went through training, we went to PCS. My PCS over to the 34th, and then I went to SIBO over in Harborfield. I know they branched the two out right after the host and network. And when you're going through those pipelines, you're either going to take a GIAC cert for networking or GIAC cert for host. I went through the host route, GCFE for host and GNFA for the network. And then once you come out of there, you're going to have that initial qualification training. Once you get out of harbor or depth one, you're going to go to your home unit, and there they're going to give you training on the weapon system. So for me, I was training ACD, and I was training in alert systems and warnings and incident response. So we had programs that we learned how to use. And then for 8834th, we were taught on TVH, which was a bad one for both of them.
So this is a question from First Lieutenant Elkins to Captain Kimball. He says, or she says, I'm very interested in trying to do student developmental work. Can you speak to your time at Kessel Run? What sort of projects you worked on? How you got that assignment /TDY, and any advice wanting to work at the software factory?
I honestly stumbled upon it. I had some friends that happened to work there, and it was back in 2018 when they were just getting started. 2017, 2018. I just left UCT. I had been at my first location for about 6 months, and I think I found it on LinkedIn, or there was an email that they just had a Google form for people that wanted to go to Kessel Run, and they were looking to recruit. They were heavily recruiting, which they still recruit. If you go and follow Kessel Run on LinkedIn, I don't know if they have a Facebook page, but they post like daily to LinkedIn, and they have recruiting fairs for civilians, government civilians, but also military TDY opportunities. Like every 6 months, you will see TDY opportunities pop up. They'll send you to a website, you fill out a questionnaire, and you're putting in there who's your commander, who's your senior raider. I did it that way. I basically just said YOLO. I went out there, I applied, and then I went back and talked to my boss and said, hey boss, I saw this great opportunity. I want to go work at Kessel Run. I think it would be great for our organization for me to get that experience and then come back and bring that type of knowledge and experience back to our organization. I went there and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. As a prior enlisted guy, one of my prior squadron commanders, Colonel Enrique Ode, was the one that was taken over Det 12, aka Kessel Run, and he happened to be in my wing building, and I was just filling up my water bottle, and he's like, you have a bar on now instead of stripes. What's up with that? What are you doing? Are you Intel? I was like, no, I'm cyber. He's like, okay, you're going to come work for me. So that helped. I had already applied and I said, you know, conveniently, I applied like 2 weeks ago. Let's make it happen. So I was able to get out there and then I got exposed to it all. I worked Air Force targeting applications. So we were doing development work for a targeting application. The team was really small. I got to work with a lot of civilians. So paired programming, extreme programming concepts. I did that for 6 months. And then even leaving there was opportunities to extend for another 6 months. Kessel Run was like, if they like you, if you weren't a fit, I interviewed with, so I put my application in, I got a call back. I got basically a Zoom interview with the hiring team. And they told me straight up, they're like, if you're not a good fit, you'll go home. If you come to this team and you think it's about you, they were a little hesitant because I was a prior master sergeant. You know, like, here's this old dude that's going to come in here and try, like, he's been in too long to come here and think differently and challenge himself. And they had, up to that point, sent home, I think, a handful of folks. And they were looking to replace people because they just weren't a good fit. I got there, spent 6 months. It was incredible. Came back, we created a small team out of Offutt. It was one of the other sites. It's tied to our Langley organization, but they're called Soaring Buffalo. That was the thing for about 1.5 years, 2 years until it kind of lost the leadership backing and support. But I did exactly what we said we were going to do. We're going to go out, we're going to learn agile software development. We're going to bring it back to our organization and look for things like Captain Comer mentioned. If you're looking for ways to automate through some very basic scripting, there are tasks in every organization that someone is like copying a list every single day of 100 things, putting it in here, and then changing like manually every single day. You just need to find what they are and then just automate them. And they're like, you're a guru, you're a god. Like, that took me 30 minutes. I Googled it and I didn't even do anything. I just copy pasted things that I've already seen. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Follow-up question on that, sir. What shred would you recommend to increase the likelihood of team bots?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one, honestly. The redesignation, like I said, I was redesignated in 2019. From a officer side, the 4 shreds are something that's relatively new. Everyone was really a Delta, and you just filled, either Delta or Sierra billets. Now we're saying, hey, we need people to actually, you would have like the most non-technical person go to a Sierra billet, or the most technical person go fill a Delta billet. I'm like, what are you doing here? You were just at a CPT, and now you're at a comm squadron run. You're the OIC of the network shop. We wasted, I think, talent that way. I don't know. The short answer is I don't know. My personal opinion is I believe the Delta side would provide the greatest flexibility based on how much time you would spend in a training pipeline for Sierra Alpha, the ability for you to go outside of that, at least initially. There's greater flexibility, I would think, on the Delta side. Initially.
Thank you.
I have a question for the Delta Bravos. So I know we hear a lot of stories about the cool things that you guys do when you're deployed, which I would also like to hear. But on the flip side, when you're back at your base not deployed, what do you do in your office on a day-to-day basis?
So I can give you both the good and the bad side of that, right? So I'll start with the bad side because it's one of my most memorable stories as a young cadet. I went to go see the 5th Mob at Robbins, right? And I get there and the LT is giving us the tour and he's describing what the unit takes care of. And he talks, the awesome deployment stories. Then he transitions into, unfortunately, we're not deployed right now. And so we just kind of move boxes around, and I kind of chuckle until we get to the giant warehouse where the shelves are collapsing and they have to move the boxes to get them the weight redistributed. And he says, and these are the boxes that we move, and he was dead serious. It's not actually always that bad. But yes, the in-garrison life can be less exciting than the deployed life. On the flip side of that, though, you do get a lot more, well, the alphas kind of have it too, but the Delta side in general, you get a lot more direct leadership opportunities than the Sierra side probably does. So even as like a first lieutenant, I had a flight of 60 people under me. And so a lot of my day-to-day time was just spent managing the admin tasks that come with being in charge of 60 people. I think at one point I had 7 master sergeants. So I was the EPR primary rater for all of them. And then each of them had their, tech sergeants under them who I would at least have to review those EPRs because this was a lot of, there's a certain like mindset and attitude that comes with being a Delta Bravo that often involves I'm going to either go smash something or go, hammer something back together in your head. And they tend to not be very good at paperwork, sometimes me included. So there's a lot of, I've got to fix the master sergeant's paperwork, which I feel like any of the other 3 groups that would never happen because the master sergeant would be a paperwork expert and not someone who is. So don't get me wrong, these people may have been terrible at writing EPRs, but they were awesome at fixing problems. As a tactical leader and as someone that you would want in charge of a bunch of tech sergeants and staffs and young airmen deployed, some of the best people I've ever worked with, despite their, writing out wordsmithing capabilities. They're also super smart, so they would be like I said, problem solvers, big time problem solving mindset. So whenever there was a weird problem that came with, we're implementing a new weapon system on the base, or we have this strange problem with this equipment we've never seen before, or even just, hey, we're looking to reorganize the squadron, how would you do it? I had go-to guys who I could trust and who I could ask those questions and who would bring me solutions. But when it came to admin, all of it kind of got dumped on me for first lieutenant at the time, who, I was better at admin. That's why they're the technical experts and I get paid more, unfortunately, right? There could also be, not all of it is admin. There were some pretty cool opportunities just from a expeditionary perspective, even in garrison. If you go to an ACS or a CRC, because you have the combat comm life, you got the 1st at Ramstein, you have the 5th at Robbins. Previously, there was the 3rd at Tinker, but it's gone now. But there's also other, one-off assignments. So you might go to an ACOMS where you're supporting the communications for an AOC, or you might go to an Intel support squadron where your job is to be the specifically tasked communication support for the Intel guys. So you'll deal with JWICs and SIPR and their, internal analyst platforms a lot. Or in my case, the CRC, the 606 ACS out of Aviano, previously Spain, but they moved us right after I got there and got my Sweet Germany assignment. A lot of the times we were trying to fix problems that people hadn't seen before. If you want that, it would be more of the JCU is who you're looking for. But we implemented a new weapon system that had never been used in the Air Force. The 23 Alpha, the TYQ 23 Alpha, previously the TYQ 23. It was this box from Vietnam, right? It was a trailer. It had cool like jungle or woodland camo paint on the side, and it was old tech, and that got replaced with commercial off-the-shelf solutions. Unfortunately, it did not get all simultaneously replaced, which meant that we as expeditionary comm types were asked to figure out how do we make the Vietnam era tech that's running off of like huge serial cables talk to the modern day COTS fiber server tech. And so we had to kind of engineer that solution. And you see a lot of first evers on PPRs and OPRs, right? But this was nobody had done this before. And our squadron commander, who was not a communicator, he was an ABM, said, hey, figure it out. And we did. So that, not deployed, but pretty cool, like war story type thing that is the fun part, if you will, of expeditionary comm, is getting to do that sort of thing. Figure out those first evers, develop solutions, fix problems, and a lot of the times come up with non-standard ways of doing things. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
It's another Delta Bravo question. What's the deployment tempo looking like now? Now that the war's kind of changing. And if you were to deploy, what would a work be? How long would the work be? Going into deployment?
So, like you said, things are kind of changing. As a very rough, just spitballing estimate, look at about, you'll still go on like a 6-month deployment, lucky part of being Air Force and not Army, and then probably have about a year off, maybe more. Those deployments, Africa is actually picking up from what I've heard lately. I see a lot of deployments to Djibouti. There's also a lot of, you kind of go maintain, you might have like a step site somewhere, or you might have just a TDY for some exercise. A lot of like international exercises or NATO exercises, you'll get tasked out to either support or participate. So you might go to Poland or, some other just NATO country in Eastern Europe or some Asia region ally, typically near some near pair or close pair adversary, right? Where it's a show of force, hey, look, we can build up a network and stand up a bear base really quickly here if we really wanted to. And when it comes to setting up bear bases, that tends to be Combat Comm is right there. Combat Comm, Red Horse, those types of people. So anytime there's an exercise, hey, we're going to go set up this bear base, or hey, we're going to go put a US network in a NATO country to see how fast we could set it up. There's a lot of those short TDYs, and those tend to be a lot short. So that's like a month, 2 months, maybe like a 2 or 3 week, not quite a 6-month deployment. The no kidding deployments, you'll see it'll be 6 months. You typically have a month or 2 of spin up where you start getting ready, you start designating, hey, these are the people that are hot to deploy. All right, these are the people that are tasked. All right, you've got to become current on everything. So go shoot, go get your gas mask fitted if you don't have it already. Redo your CBurn, your SABC, all of that, because you have to remain current through your end of your deployment window. And then you'll go to like Fieldcraft Hostel at Fort Dix, and so that's a couple weeks itself. So all in all, a 1 to 2 month spin up, 6 months deployment, and then like a week or 2 of R&R when you get home. And then typically they try not to task out the people who just went when the next deployment tasking comes around. So you should have about a year off. But again, that's me spitballing. The types of stuff you do over there, like I said, either it's an exercise or if we had a new deployment, it would be setting up a bear base. Other than that, you tend to be maintaining an existing expeditionary network. So you've got a GMT, like a ground multiband terminal, or some other dish or antenna or SATCOM entry point, and you're just there making sure the lights stay on, making sure the network stays maintained and properly locked down. A lot of the times that involves, keeping Facebook blocked and trying to negotiate where those 8 to 12 megabits of bandwidth actually go. The network is pretty slow if you're no kidding on an expeditionary network. Our super machines were a nightmare. Yes.
When you said you kept your networks locked down, do you do any form of security as a Delta Bravo?
Not like an MDT or a CPT would do, but the network is kind of yours. So you have full admin rights because it's not AFNet a lot of the time. It's, I think in Guam or Korea that we colloquially called it DragonNet. And that was just the Combat Comm network that was set up off of Combat Comm, a large communications package with the server that comes with it. And everything is, network admin rights are Combat Comm network technicians. So, they set up the firewall and the basic user groups and things like that. And you could consider that mission assurance and just making sure that, your firewall rules are properly set up. And if there's a new, so you still have to comply with basic guidance from higher up. So if you had like a TCTO or something that comes down, or a new vulnerability is identified in whatever operating system, you would be responsible for, hey, go change the rules to comply with this TCTO, or hey, go patch this system to eliminate whatever. Like if you remember, they had that one open source vulnerability with PKI certs that was discovered in Windows 10. So yeah, it's your network and there's no comm squad in there to do it. So you would be responsible for fixing that. They might like mail you a CD to do it, but we actually had to patch a radio software once. And yeah, they no kidding mailed us a CD to Iraq.
I have a question. I'm Lieutenant Aladrus, regarding 17 Delta Bravo. What can we be doing right now as a SNIT to maximize our competitiveness to be selected as a Delta Bravo?
That's hard because I know for a fact that I got it because I'd happened to have deployment experience under my belt and, gone to the ACS. And so when they did the shred out, they said, hey, this guy's already tactical, off he goes. Obviously you can't really get tactical experience here in the schoolhouse, right? But I know the stereotypical answer is the PT, right? The 100 on the PT test thing isn't actually true. I think my lowest ever was a 93.7 and I was embarrassed about my runtime on that one, but I have never actually gotten 100. So you don't need 100 to be combat comm or to be expeditionary, but you do want to be in shape and just that a willingness to deal with the ops tempo that comes with being probably the most deployed type of communicator, right? So you're gonna, I don't know, do they still do ADPs here or an equivalent where you type up your assignment preferences? I guess you're
using talent marketplace.
Yeah, talent marketplace now.
Yep.
So in your talent marketplace comments, put things like you want to get tactical experience and you want to be operational, and that you may not necessarily be interested in the coding side of operational experience, but that you want to be in the fight. Because the personnel team, the assignment management team, they actually do read that stuff. And if you indicate that you are willing to deal with that 6 on year off, or worst case like 6 on 6 off tempo, then they're going to be much happier to put you into that life than someone who maybe has a family or who doesn't want to deploy all the time. I'm still single, I'm not married, so yeah, I'm happy to keep going back if they keep sending me. And I think that's something they legitimately have taken into account, and that's why I ended up expeditionary. That's the best answer I can give, is indicate that willingness to go and to live the deployed life and at least get an excellent on your PT test if you're not quite 100 range.
I think there's a demand for the Delta Bravo right now. It's a conversation right off the bat whenever you do get into a class with your mentor to just say, hey, I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
What can I do for the next 6 months that can align me to be successful to get this Delta Bravo shred when I leave, or when the shreds come out, right? And I think there's multiple opportunities. UMS posted something about, is it JCSE or JCU coming to town here shortly? Going and having conversations and gaining some additional perspective from what that future career. It's like we have a thought of what we want to be, especially in that position, right? I want to be a Sierra Alpha, I want to be a Delta Bravo. You may know, depending on your background, or may not know a lot about it. Get exposed and have those conversations with as many people like this, and like when JCU comes to town and say, hey, what's a day in the life look like for you? How do I be successful? How are you different than, if I want to shred out Delta Bravo and go to Guam or First Combat Comm, and then they, they'll give their spiel to you and be like, hey, come this way, you can come our way, you can come apply to JCSE or JCU, come do some other stuff. But mentor for sure, right off the bat, have that. If your mentor is not scheduling a one-on-one right off the bat, like within the first 30 days, ask for it. Ask for the feedback. I want to tell you what I want to be when I grow up. At the end of this, you haven't asked me yet, other than the initial 30-minute introduction. Your mentor will come in hopefully the first week or two and say, oh, I wrote all your names down. You want to be a Sierra, a Delta Bravo? Cool. I put that in my spreadsheet. Well, sit down with them or him or her, and tell them, what's your passion? And if they have that in their mind now, they have that in the spreadsheet. That helps kind of vector you in the right way. It gets you, when opportunities come up, there's a lot of things behind the scenes from an instructor in schoolhouse that float around the 50 different Slack groups and channels and things that exist. You go, oh, this is perfect for you. This is perfect for this person. And I know that because I've sat down with them, and this would be right up their alley. But PT, I think, is probably the biggest discriminator.
That's the stereotype answer, yeah. And I mean, there is a reason for that, right? If you can't get a high score on your PT test, you're probably not the type of person who enjoys going out and doing manual labor, lifting, 3-man or 6-man lift cases and carrying them around the desert. Being the type of person who plays outside helps, or at least is fit enough to do that. But like he said, so for any of the career fields or AFSCs, I think an important first step is, getting your name and your face out there, because if your mentor and the assignments team and the instructors here know that you want that from the beginning, they can help put a good word in for you, get your face out there in the community if you get the chance. So I know the commander of the 5th Combat Comm Group was here recently. So when visits like that happen, come sit down in the room and say like, hey, I'm interested, because Combat Comm is a pretty small community, all things told. Like I said, there's like 3 active duty bases that, if you count Guam, you got Province, Ramstein, Guam, that's it. Not a lot of people. If you count all the ACOM CRCs, it's a little bit bigger. But one of my buddies who's also a Bravo told me that at the time they did the shred out, I think there were 49 of us captains. So if your face gets around and people know you want it, they might ask for you. You might get lucky that way. You never really know.
I have a question. This is a Delta question, either Alpha or Bravo. Are there any assignment opportunities as like an advisor to like foreign forces or like advisor of some sort?
There's always opportunities. I know before I got this time, there was an opportunity to go to Korea for an exercise for 6 weeks. And I feel like as a 17 Delta Alpha, especially as a young lieutenant, you talk to your commander, he or she may be like, yeah, go. That's a great opportunity for you to go. I mean, you're expected as 17 Delta Alphas just to get more knowledge, right? I mean, if it wasn't for this time, I'm sure if I put my name in the hat, I could have got a chance to deploy or to go to Korea for some of these TUIs and stuff. But it just depends. In my personal opinion, I think 17 Delta Alphas have a little bit more flexibility because there's a lot more of us to go do some cool stuff.
I can't remember. Is there somebody here who's been to Air Advisor School? Or it might have been when I was in Korea. It might have been one of my fellow Delta Bravos had actually gone to Air Advisor training. I think that's also at Fort Dix. When I was in Fieldcraft Hostel, there was like a follow-on for people who were going to Air Advisor assignments. And I know that one of my comm buddies has been to that. It's in a Delta role. That tends to be just a volunteer thing, though. The call goes out and you respond to it and you get lucky. I'm not sure if you're actively seeking to be an Air Advisor. I'm not sure who to ask.
I would always point you to that Mill Suite page, and if you guys don't know what it is, we can plug it a little bit later. But I'll tell you, opportunities come up every single day, and if you're not like up to date and having these conversations with your mentor here or with your supervisor, your commander, your future unit, your peer group. I know people will kind of hate on the CGOC whenever you get to your base, but that's truly how you get exposed to programs and people that are like, yeah, I went to that school. How'd you do that? Tell me how you did that. Sitting down with your boss and having that conversation, forcing the conversation. This is what I'm interested in doing in the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. Here are my career goals. How do I make that happen? They'll go, yeah, there's a really great program for that. You're like, wow, I didn't even know that. Like, here's the page for it. Here's the link to it. You need to do some work on your own, but I'll tell you, no one is going to hold your hand. The amount of opportunities I still learn, like I said, 11, 12 years prior enlisted, thought I knew what the Air Force was, commissioned. And I felt like on the enlisted side, it was there's a path for you. You do this, you jump to the next, jump to the next step, jump to the next step. You commission, and it was like, there's things coming like all over the place. You get automated MyPers emails like, hey, you want to go TDY to Korea? It's open to everybody. Any 17 Delta captains or below that want to go? And you're just kind of like, can I volunteer to this? Like, boss, can I? They're like, not a good time, but yeah, you're eligible for it. Like, you can volunteer. Like, who pays for this? It's like, says funding's there. If you want to go to Korea for 8 weeks, or you're looking for volunteers, they come out, and sometimes you get the automated emails. And if you're just sitting in your office day to day, and you're not having the conversations or poking around some of our core websites where that information is being posted, routinely posted, you're just going to be sitting there like, I wish something cool would happen, you know? Go seek it out, ask questions, and you'll be surprised. More often than not, if you're deliberate about your plan, it's not like, boss, next week I want to go do this thing and there's no money. I need you to fund it. Like, the answer is probably going to be no. But if you prepare and have a conversation and you give your leadership team, more often than not, your bosses want to help put you on that path, whatever that path may be, right? Or kind of glide you softly glide you in maybe a better direction based on their experience, right? Mentorship is what we'll say. So routinely check those websites, routinely ask questions, talk to your peer groups, have conversations like this. You're here right now. This is great. This is a great first step. When you leave UCWT, I know like right now you're thinking shreds and how do I get the Gucci assignment, right? I want to be a Delta Bravo, and I want to go to Hawaii for like 5 years. How do I make that happen, right? Good luck. But when you leave here, these conversations can still happen. It's just the students not in training don't exist in your squadron, and they're not organizing it for you. You need to be deliberate. You need to be your own SNIT. You need to be your own cheat code and have those conversations with your leadership. If not, no one's going to go like, hey, follow me. This is the path. This is the way you need to go. And here's all the answers. I guess not really a great answer, but just more recommendations.
Unsung benefit of combat comp is all of the bosses I've had have usually been super willing to just improvise because they're used to doing that in general. And so they let me apply I tried to go to the Mansfield Fellowship in Japan. That's not necessarily com related at all, but my boss was like, oh yeah, sure, sounds cool, man. I had a buddy who did that. It was sweet. Yeah, I applied for it. Unfortunately, only 2 people get picked up for that, and it's stopping being a best kept secret and starting being popular, so I didn't get it. But yeah, they would have just let me leave my assignment a year early to go hang out near the embassy in Japan. Assignments and opportunities like that come up, and it's just a matter of snagging it and letting your boss know early, like, hey, I'm interested in this, because they do stand to lose a worker, so you don't want to get the soft mentorship of, what if you didn't do that?
And also the opportunity to get certifications. So if you talk to your squadron, talk to your training flight, and they'll give you guys have those good certs that are help you out with the job.
So I have a question regarding Sierras, because I see that Delta has a lot of opportunities to go overseas. How about Sierras? Like, are there any overseas-based options, or is it just like stateside?
We have for the Citizens Bravos, we can go to Hawaii, go to Germany. We have with regards to CBTs, we can go to TUI a lot, all over. We're working a lot in the great space for it. And yeah, there's opportunities like for deployment opportunities for there as well. Call us out. We send the guys in the deep, out of the deep. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, I can't really talk a whole lot about where it can go. But yeah, there's opportunities to travel. Yeah.
From I guess one Bravo perspective, where would you expect to see your Sierra Alpha like officers located at? Where do you guys traditionally go?
Yeah, so for Sierra Alpha, we're just going to be Fort Meade, Fort Gordon, which is Augusta, Georgia, Security Hill, Blackman, and Hawaii. That's pretty much the 4 bases you're limited to Sierra Alpha.
Maybe down in Georgia, staying down there, but that's, again, fewer people.
Sierra Bravo, you're going to see Dubai a lot. Like he was saying, I have the 92nd cost. I went to Dubai, to Germany twice, IUD, England, Vegas, Florida, California, all over. Like, that was like my first 2 years there. So you can go see Dubai a lot, about a month at a time.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of Sierra Bravos and sent like the CPG folks to Korea for a while there.
Yep. Depends on what the mission set is there too, like your Air Force retained, your Northmont retained. bases kind of gets sort of limited.
This was like, for us at the 834, we were in California, West Coast, Alaska.
Yes. I had a follow-up question on that. For Sierra Bravo in particular, what's the likelihood of going to places like Hawaii or Hawaii right out of UCC or right out of other
Two people in my UCWT class went to Hawaii as their first Sierra assignment, but that may be an outlier.
Yeah.
I think they go, what, 690th or 691st predominantly, and I don't think there's, I mean, that's a second lieutenant, probably greater chance than first lieutenant, or your first lieutenant, right? Ask your mentor, you're in class right now.
Yes, sir. I'm not really asking for myself, but yes, sir.
There's a list. I mean, we keep a list of the historical drops. If you want to see Sierra Bravo within the last year, who's gone to the 691st or the 690th, I want to say within the last 2 or 3 drops, both of those dropped.
And just to clarify, sir, what's the 690th and 691st?
CSCS weapon system.
Is there a location associated with that? Or?
Yeah, Hickam and Ramstein.
Captain Dunn, what's your pitch for Delta Alpha? Like, what's your favorite part of the job?
That's a good question.
He's a plant. He's a plant. He's one of his students.
I've never seen these students before. You know what? Being a 17 Delta Alpha, it's the airmen, right? I joined for the airmen. There's been times as the leader where we sit down with our commander and then we strap people for a tech sergeant or staff sergeant. And knowing that I can get one of my hardest workers, the #1 pick, it's the best feeling ever because they earned it. And I see them in and out and I tell them like, hey, you work hard. And then the rest of that's going to be on me. The chance when I go to my commander, I say, hey, sir, Staff Sergeant Snuffy should be our #1 for tech sergeant because he does all these things. And then the commander says, I agree. It's like one of the best feelings. To make a difference in one of your airmen or guardian's life is the coolest thing. I got the chance to be the flight commander when our flight director retired. So I was the flight commander for 9 months. And to go through the hurricane, it sucked, but to take care of them was probably the best thing ever. We're all leaders first. And, and just hanging out with them is awesome. Anytime they were working late, there were days where our cable dogs were working 16 hours a day. And just going and hanging out with them was the best thing ever. Actually, when I was PCSing, one of the airmen came up to me, aside from everyone, said, hey, sir, I just want to say that you're a great officer, and I appreciate you hanging out with us, pulling cables or hanging out in the heat digging. It means a lot to me. And to make a difference on an A1C at that level, like, it's why I wear this uniform. It's a thankless job sometimes, but I understand our mission is we touch everyone. Planes can't fly without communications. At Tyndall, we'd have these checker flags where all the jets would come, the Navy would come out, and they would fly jets off the Gulf of Mexico and shoot down missiles. And I know that without me and my airmen, they wouldn't be able to do that. So that's a cool thing. I think 17 Delta Alphas don't get a lot of love because when they think about us, they think about, oh, the internet isn't working. I think it's not our fault. We always ask the customer, is your office suite mate office down too? No, yeah. We just tell them, oh, it's the Air Force level thing, but it's never the base fault. But no, I think it's just cool. I think being a 17 Delta Alpha is a sweet gig. We're not held to 1 or 2 base, and you get to travel the world.
Every single base.
Every single base.
All of the things, all of the bases that you see, you can go to, right? Even some that you probably don't see, you can go to. So if travel's a big thing, but what I'll say, there's like a misconception that if you're a Delta Alpha, you're not technical. Completely incorrect, right? I spent pretty much the majority of my first assignment, Delta Alpha type job, and I was leading very technical problems for Air Force targeting. I went to Kessel Run. I did Agile software development. I came back. My unit was the first to integrate Amazon Web Services successfully on the Air Force secret network, right? So there was problems that we were encountering. It was Langley, it was right after Tyndall. And they were like, hey, what does our data backup solution look like? I'm like, oh yeah, it's all, that one room right there, that's like, would go 12 feet underwater if we actually got, a hurricane in the area. It's co-located, like, we don't, and it's tapes. And like, you don't have anything offsite? No, we don't have anything offsite. We can't afford it. We don't have the resources. I'm like, how do we solve that? Well, we're gonna migrate to the cloud. That sprawled from just backing our data up offsite to how do we now do, some software development stuff in the cloud? How do we now put some of our analyst workstations, how do we take some of those capabilities and put those in the cloud? Very technical. You can make that, and it was my team coming up with the solution, right? It was us saying, yeah, we could just take the tapes and we can drive them 50 miles down the road. Or, a couple of smart airmen going, yeah, I messed with this stuff on my free time. Why can't we do this? I'm like, well, no one's done it. Well, you guys gonna give us money for this? We came up with a plan. They're like, yeah, here's 20 grand. Go try it out. Go see what happens. And we were able to make it happen. And they're like, what else can you do with it? I'm like, oh, I don't know. We just put the data over there. I'm like, well, do other things with it now. Get smart on it, right? Go get technical. So there's opportunities for you to get technical, but again, no one is going to hold your hand. If you want to do technical work as Delta Alpha, you can do technical work. It may not be OCO or DCO. You got to figure out what you want. If you want the Gucci assignment, you can still be challenged as a Delta Alpha, bottom line.
And then two things too. You get a lot of mentorship, right? When I was a lieutenant, I hung out with my seniors a lot, flight chiefs. And they would, it was constantly every day I was mentoring sessions. So if you're looking for that, a lot of leadership, 17 Delta Alpha is a good way. I'm sure there's also a lot of mentoring too, but every single day me and my senior were hip to hip, going to meetings together. And the second thing is, you're a problem solver. Every single time, calm, it never fails. On a Friday at 1400, the network's always out, and you have to solve those problems. Or people are coming to you because they have new requirements. Like, hey, we need a new phone system. So we just transitioned from Avaya to Cisco VoIP, and trying to build those blocks of making a dial plan for like 6,000 users. It's a lot of work, but once you do that, it's pretty rewarding. So you're solving problems every day.
In my years at Delta Alpha, I'd say I often describe myself as an advocate. The more rewarding part of the job, arguably, is you a lot of times you're kind of the wall between a lot of angry people and your poor airmen who are doing their best to fix the problem. So you have that responsibility for conveying what is and is not actually possible to the customer and to the higher up, in order to make sure that your airmen are able to keep doing their job, or that people listen to your airmen. When my A1C is telling a NAF commander that he has to surrender his computer because he received a classified message incident email, now I have to, as the flight commander, back that up and say, no, really, sir, you have to give up your computer and protect that airman from, the tirade and take it yourself instead. So that could be a unique and rewarding sometimes part of the job. There's also a lot of, when I said translating what's possible, you do a lot of project management type things, and sometimes people are going to ask you for things that are not your job as a Delta Alpha. People want new badge scanners for the FSS building, or they want somebody to go fix the problems with the cable contract, and you have to reroute them to the correct place and defend your poor, staff sergeant who's trying to tell them that is not the comm squadron's job. Instead of being the dangerous good idea ferry who says, oh, absolutely, we'll get that right to you, sir, and now you've tasked your airmen with an impossible task or something way outside their wheelhouse. So that's a big part of the Alpha jobs that I'd say as an officer. On the combat comm side, when somebody says, hey, we need a phone at this tent, we needed it yesterday, and also we don't have any way of getting it there, sure, maybe you have to figure it out and run the tactical wire spool across the tac pad, but sometimes in the regular comm world, you need to stick up for your airmen and say, no, that's a low priority ticket, or that's not comm's job. Go to contracting and figure out what's wrong with the cable TV.
It can put you in some uncomfortable position, where majors or lieutenant colonels is calling you directly because they're your peers. They're like the SEO flight commander for like the ACOMs. They're like, hey, we need your airmen here now. And then you have to tell them, no, sir, your airmen should troubleshoot. And if they can't figure out, the comm squadron will take over. So it teaches you how to communicate with majors and lieutenant colonels in a tactful way. Yeah, like
You just tell them no. That's pretty easy.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your question earlier.
This is kind of for, I guess, everybody. Is it true / what is the status of the Air Force contracting out on the boss IT?
Enterprise IT as a service.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so our base is currently doing it. We're not considered an ITAS base. Right after the storm, General Holmes, the ACC commander back then, said that Tendo is gonna be a different one. We're fully gonna do it. We're gonna back them up. So we partnered up with AT&T. We've been partnering up with them for a while. They're doing some air things at our base. It's a unique situation because there's a lot of these good idea ferries, but we don't have the money for it. So like the first 2 years went well, and then it stopped. We're like, hey, we know we told you we were gonna like hand over services where civilian contractors were gonna come in and take over CSTs, so you guys can focus on MDT. But what's more important? Do you want the hardware or do you want the customer service? So now we're at that point where we need the hardware, so it's pushing everything back. So I know there's 8 bases. I think Offutt's one, and there's a Buckley's one, and Herbert's one. I think they're partnering with Microsoft. So right now it's between AT&T and Microsoft, and they're still collaborating. I know AT&T works with Microsoft. Microsoft works with AT&T on some issues. My opinion, realistically, it's going to be hard, right? When the Department of the Air Force sees the bill to fund all these bases to take over contracting, it's a lot of money. I know one of our projects, it was $110 million for a year. That was just to like upgrade everything. Now we're talking about sustaining that service. I don't know how the Air Force can pay for all the bases to do that. That's going to be something that Air Force and the Department of Defense needs to figure out.
So it depends. We talk about this in class, right? It depends. I think the good idea, Harry, was like, hey, enterprise IT as a service is a thing. 2017, like you said, under General Holmes, the old COMAC, the CSI, the Comm Squadron Initiative pad, if you go to the portal and look that up, you can see that the train of thought there. There's been some updates over the past couple of years on what the status looks like. We were fortunate to sit down last week with Brigadier General Select Adams. He's a half 85, and he brought that up. And his main thing was what he just said. At a high level, there's an $800 million bill. Offutt was one of the sites that I was working with. It was one of our sister squadrons at the unit I was at Langley. And there wasn't much progress. I mean, you're looking at a project or a program that got kicked off in 2017-18 timeframe, and it was really starting with InterNet. They were still working it when I left January 21. I mean, my counterparts, they hadn't given up their rights yet.
And from a 17 and broader perspective, we did not want to give our power to contractors to perform defense cyber operations. One thing that happened was they were talking at the meetings at Microsoft was, oh, we're just going to provide you a report and see how good we're doing. But how do we make sure that what they're doing is right? And how are we going to perform defense cyber operations? But to answer your question, it's been such a long time. We don't really know how long it's going to take until we implement everything. You know, we just migrated all or almost all of our bases from Air Force gateways to JRSS. GIA is not in conversation. And they're already talking about JRSS becoming just a highway and us just connecting over and getting span points to our schools. So to answer your question, time will tell.
But I think if we do have the money, it'd be beneficial.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Who does it better? The government or a commercial company that does it, that's been doing it for years? If you think about it, AT&T actually owns majority of the circuits in America already.
Yeah, that's great. That helps out a lot. I was really just kind of seeing, so I'm at Vandenberg right now, cooking class at the C-Spot, and we, almost every single lieutenant is now in the MDT. So we have like 5 or 6 lieutenants and officers in the MDT. And I'm really curious to see if that's almost inevitable, even for your 17-year-old deltas, if we're all going to eventually go towards the defense side, or are there going to still be jobs like FCX, SEO, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, you'll still have, I think I was reading the CSI pad, you'll still have government functions that you can't hand over, like plans and programs will still be a government. I think Wing IA was still one, and then you have your SDOT shop, your radio frequency was going to be one of your cable dogs. So you still technically have your 17 Deltas, but they just be a small flight. And they're trying to figure out where does that go, the ITAS flight, right? So mission of the cyber squadron goes to OG. Where do you put the enterprise as a service flight? You'll ideally want to have like a captain or a major still be in that flight.
Right.
From what I've read in the CSI pad. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, if you look at, it was Comm Squadron of the future, Comm Squadron next, and they went to Comm Squadron Initiative, then they rebranded it like 14 times. The whole, what you just said, like, hey, there's a lot of LTs and everyone's got an MDT, was to take, and a lot of people took that CSI pad without the actual resources, the dollars and the actual manpower, and they just took that and started executing. Whether or not that was like part of their official like UMD change, like behind the scenes they modified, or they just took that as like, that's the gospel. We need to start shifting over from the traditional comm squadron enterprise IT to mission assurance cells. And for mission assurance, we needed to have an MDT. I went to a unit, I was OIC in the MDT, and I got there and we didn't have weapon system. I was like, what am I MDTing right now? They're like, hey, we're in the ISR targeting enterprise. Like, yeah, but JWIX is owned by AFSC and this other entity. Nipper and Sipper is owned by Base Comm. I'm like, you don't have a weapon system. It's not the AFSC. It's not the DGS. It's not any of these other MDT-like organizations. And I'm like, well, everyone else has an MDT, so we put our name in the hat too. I'm like, well, we can't place sensors anywhere because we don't maintain any of the infrastructure. Just FMA everything. You guys will learn about it.
You can tell a history lesson. 10 years ago, 2011, at the DoD conference for essentially cloud networking. So 10 years ago, the DoD was looking at taking all of DoD, not just Air Force, but most network, putting it in the cloud and making it a thing. So in 2011, cloud computing wasn't new. It's still been around for a while. AWS has been extremely successful in the past 5 years. The DoD now proposing was like, hey, let's do this for our stuff. So at the time, the A6 with Air Force was General Ward was talking about it. The biggest issue that he was saying that we were going to face, that we're still facing, is that we are absolutely horrible at planning for something and sticking to it through the long term. In 2010, the Air Force moved to the AFNet. So from all the little stub domains that each base had its own network, to we all had one giant centralized network that was located still in one location with enterprise service desk that would do everything. Several years later, we realized this was a horrible solution. Troubleshooting time on tickets was crazy. I was a Comm Squad at the time. Our support for local installation went from same-day resolution to weeks later resolution. This was something that, again, we talked about at that conference. From the A6 level, the 4-star general saying, hey, we haven't figured this out. We were going in one direction from there, so now we have CPTs, MPTs that we weren't even talking about 10 years ago. So the whole looking at everything, getting contracted out, going to the cloud. Me as an enlisted member, I'm apprehensive about it because I see every few years we're changing, we're doing something new. It's the whole horrible saying that I really hate, but is very true, is that cyber changes. Every year something's different, we're doing something different, every service is doing something different. And if we move everything to the cloud, all of a sudden something happens. We see adversary doing something different. How do we respond to that as the DoD when Microsoft is something that AT&T is. So it's one of those where I don't think anyone has a good solution, yet, even at the highest level. We're trying to get there, we're trying to figure it out, hoping that we're making the right choice. Because again, that $100 million price tag for one thing that's difficult for lawmakers to listen to. If we say, hey, it's $100 million for this installation, of course the state's like, yes, this is money for us, but from Congress, how much debt want to throw at that when still it's this much, and this much, and this much, we want to change it. We'll see, I guess is my best answer. 10 years ago, we're still, I think, kind of in the same situation. I see it long-term still being worth control. But maybe the pendulum just keeps swinging one day, eventually go back.
Just blockchain AI cloud. We just do that, that's all. With that,
All right, sweet. So if anyone has any last minute questions, I'm sure you can ask your mentors, but if you have any other questions that specifically geared towards an AFSC, I'll definitely send out their point of contact in the squadron email alias so that you do have their contact information to ask any questions you might have after today. Of course. Thank you for coming. Awesome, thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Bye, guys.
That was it.